Sir, you can't sit here." The words were polite, but the tone wasn't. The old man in Seat 14C didn't respond. His eyes stayed on the rain, streaking across the airplane window, watching it bead and slide like tracer rounds in a memory he couldn't shake. The flight attendant sighed, ready to move him to the back, until she saw the tag on his duffel, a faded canvas patch with one word almost erased by time: Spectre. She didn't know what it meant. But in an hour the sky would remind her. Around him, the cabin buzzed with the small irritations of travel, the click of seatbelts, the shuffle of briefcases, the impatient sighs of people who believed time owed them something. The old man sat still. His name was John Mercer, 82 years old, retired. Though retired never felt right. The uniform had been hung up decades ago, but the habits never left: shoulders square, eyes level, silence chosen over noise. Before we go on, if stories like this one touch your heart, stories about quiet heroes and the skies they never stopped serving, take a moment to subscribe. Let's get back to the story. Sir, do you need help finding your correct seat? The attendant pressed, her practiced smile tightening. This is it, Mercer said quietly. His voice had the texture of gravel, worn but steady. A man across the aisle looked up from his phone. Expensive watch, slick tie, the kind of confidence that came with youth and assumption. "Miss," he said loud enough for others to hear, "I think there's been a mistake. Maybe he's supposed to be further back." A few chuckles rippled nearby. Mercer didn't move. He just looked down at his hands resting on his knees, the same hands that once guided an F-4 Phantom through flak and fire. The attendant, Megan, checked her tablet. Her brows pinched. Seat 14C, John Mercer. The ticket was correct, but her expression stayed doubtful, as if the computer itself had misjudged him. "Everything's fine," Mercer murmured, eyes drifting back to the window. "Let's just get airborne." Megan nodded stiffly and moved on. But the businessman wasn't done. "Can't blame her," he muttered to the man beside him. "Guy looks like he came straight out of a museum." Laughter. Quick, nervous and cruel, Mercer didn't react. The years had taught him silence carried more power than argument. Outside, the rain intensified, tapping against the glass like 1,000 small reminders. The captain's voice soon came through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We'll be departing shortly. Flight time to San Diego is 3 hours, 10 minutes. 3 hours, Mercer thought. 3 hours of sky. Enough time to remember too much. As the engines whined to life, he felt the subtle vibration beneath his feet. He could always tell the aircraft's mood through the floor. Anxious, heavy, eager. This one felt young. The plane began to taxi. Megan passed once more, glancing at him with residual suspicion. But when she caught the faint glint of a small metal coin hanging from his duffel zipper, etched with a lightning bolt and wings, she paused. "What's that?" she asked, curiosity softening her tone. Mercer's gaze stayed forward. "A souvenir," he said. He didn't elaborate. She didn't ask again. As the aircraft lifted from the ground, a deep, quiet calm filled the cabin. Outside, the clouds swallowed the world below. John Mercer closed his eyes, hearing again the phantom echo of radio chatter in his head. Voices long gone, call signs fading into static. Spectre 1. Clear for takeoff. Spectre 2. Ready on your wing. He opened his eyes to the dull cabin lights, the businessman still scrolling, the flight attendant still moving. Different sky, same silence. And somewhere above those clouds, something familiar was waiting to find him. Seatbelt light still on, engines humming steady, rain disappearing into the clouds like ghosts being left behind. Megan rolled the drink cart down the aisle. Routine smiles, automatic words, until she reached 14C again. "Coffee, sir." Mercer nodded. "Black." She poured it carefully, but her eyes lingered on the coin dangling from his duffel. The lightning bolt gleamed when cabin light caught it. Something about it felt official. Military, maybe. Behind her, the businessman smirked. "Careful with that caffeine, old-timer. Don't want your heart giving out mid-flight." A few passengers laughed again, the cheap kind of laughter that fills silence. Megan's smile vanished. "Sir, please." "It's fine," Mercer interrupted softly. He took the cup, hands steady. He's not saying anything I haven't heard before, but inside, the words landed like a distant shell burst. He remembered younger men talking like that once, right before they learned what courage costs. Across the aisle, a boy of about 10 peeked over the seat. Baseball cap, wide eyes, curiosity pure and innocent. "Were you in the Army?" the boy asked. Mercer looked up, caught off guard. "Air Force," he said quietly. The boy's eyes widened. "Cool. Did you fly jets?" Mercer hesitated, then gave the smallest nod. "F-4 Phantoms." The boy turned to his father in excitement. "Dad, he flew a Phantom." His father smiled politely. "That's nice, son. Let the man rest." But Megan didn't move on. She was studying him now. The calm posture, the quiet authority that couldn't be faked. Her curiosity grew heavier with each second. "You still have friends who fly?" she asked gently. Mercer's eyes drifted toward the window again. "Some," he said. "Most took a different flight years ago." Silence. Only the engines filled the gap. Megan swallowed hard and pushed the cart forward, but before she left, Mercer spoke again, almost to himself. "Funny thing about the sky, it never forgets who's been up here." Half an hour passed. The cabin settled into the rhythm of travel. Soft snoring, movie glow, whispers. Then a beep echoed from the intercom. "This is your captain," came a warm, steady voice. "Just a note for our passengers. If you look out the right-hand side, you'll see 2 F-35s conducting a training exercise near our altitude." Quite a sight. Heads turned toward the windows. Phones lifted. Excited murmurs spread. Mercer didn't move, but his fingers tightened around the coffee cup, knuckles whitening. Through the glass, 2 sleek fighters glided alongside, black silhouettes slicing through silver cloud. The youngest generation of warbirds. The businessman leaned closer to the window. "Now that's modern power," he said. "Nothing like those antiques from Vietnam." Megan saw Mercer's jaw tighten, the smallest flinch of muscle. Then quietly, deliberately, he reached for the coin. He rubbed its edge once with his thumb, the way some people do a prayer bead. Lightning bolt, wings, Spectre. Outside, one of the F-35s tilted slightly, banking close enough that the airline passengers gasped. The pilot inside flashed a quick hand signal, 2 fingers, then a tap on the helmet. Most passengers didn't understand it. Mercer did. It was an old salute, used decades ago by his squadron. Megan saw him inhale sharply, a breath caught halfway between memory and disbelief. "How could he?" she whispered. Mercer's eyes stayed on the fighter. "He knows," the businessman laughed nervously. "Knows what, Grandpa?" Mercer didn't answer. He just kept looking out at the sky that once belonged to him. Somewhere above the clouds, history was circling back, and the old ghosts were waking up. For a long minute, no one spoke. The 2 F-35s cruised alongside, their wingtips glinting like blades under the sun. It wasn't turbulence that made the cabin still. It was reverence, though most didn't know why. Megan leaned toward the window again. "They're staying with us?" she whispered. Mercer didn't answer. His eyes tracked every small correction in their flight path, the kind of precision that only another pilot could feel in his bones. He could almost sense their altitude, their airspeed, their intent. The intercom cracked. "Ladies and gentlemen, those aircraft have requested permission to fly in close formation for a short salute. Nothing to worry about, just an extraordinary coincidence." Even the captain's voice carried a trace of emotion. A salute. Mercer's throat tightened. He hadn't heard that word directed at him in 30 years. The businessman scoffed. A salute to who? Megan shot him a look sharp enough to slice through his arrogance. Maybe to someone who earned it. Mercer stayed silent, but the faintest smile formed, sad, proud, heavy. He reached again for the small coin and turned it between his fingers. Lightning bolt. Spectre squadron dot outside. One of the F-35s rolled slowly, inverted for a heartbeat before leveling again, a gesture older than both of the pilots inside. The unmistakable sign of respect to a fallen or retired comrade. The boy across the aisle gasped. "Dad, he's doing a flip just for us." His father stared, realizing. "No, son, not for us." Megan crouched beside Mercer's seat, voice low. Sir, who are you? Mercer took a long breath. No one special. Just someone who remembers when that sky was a little noisier. She shook her head. They don't do that for no one special. The captain appeared from the cockpit, standing near the front galley. He spoke into the cabin mic, his tone steady but reverent. Ladies and gentlemen, our traffic escort today belongs to the 422nd Fighter Wing. Nellis Air Force Base. One of their pilots recognized a name on our manifest, Colonel John Mercer, USAF, retired. Vietnam and Desert Storm veteran, former commander, Spectre Squadron. A soft collective gasp spread through the rows. Passengers turned toward 14C. Mercer sat still, eyes lowered. The coin glinted between his fingers. Megan whispered, "You led Spectre?" He nodded once, a long time ago. "Different wings, same sky?" The businessman's face went pale. "Sir, I didn't know." Mercer waved a hand. "How could you? Not your fault. People forget. That's how peace survives." Outside, the two jets drifted closer again. Then one peeled away, wing dipping low in a perfect missing man formation, one jet rising, the other flying straight. Every pilot knows what that means. Every heart on that plane felt it, even if they couldn't name it. The boy took off his cap. "Thank you, sir," he said softly. The old man turned, eyes misted. "You're welcome, son." Megan's eyes glistened too. "Do they always find you like this?" "No," Mercer said quietly. "But the sky has a memory longer than people think." For a moment, no one breathed. Then the jet that had climbed above them broke away, vanishing into a shaft of sunlight. The second followed, banking off toward the horizon. The airliner continued its steady path westward, ordinary again, but forever changed. Megan stayed beside him, hands clasped tight around the coffee pot she'd forgotten to set down. She whispered, "I think they were saying goodbye." Mercer looked back at the clouds, where the fighters had disappeared. "No," he said softly. "They were saying welcome home." Perfect. For nearly a full minute, no one spoke. The air felt different, heavier somehow. Even the hum of the engines sounded muted, as if the aircraft itself understood what had just passed outside its windows. The businessman, Marcus, couldn't meet anyone's gaze. His jaw was set, but his eyes betrayed the shame he was trying to hide. The same mouth that had mocked now had no words left to speak. He looked toward Mercer, the man he'd dismissed as a confused old passenger, and saw something he'd never noticed before. The quiet composure of someone who had long ago learned the value of silence over defense. Megan stood frozen in the aisle, hands still clutching the service cart. For years, she'd seen every type of passenger, impatient executives, chatty tourists, restless families, but she'd never seen the entire front cabin, sitting in perfect stillness. "United by awe, sir," she finally whispered. Would you like some water?" Mercer gave a small smile. "No, thank you. I've had enough clear skies for one day." Captain Evans' voice returned over the intercom. "Softer now. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in recognizing Colonel Mercer and the men and women who served beside him. It's an honor to share this flight with you, sir." Applause didn't come immediately. It wasn't hesitation, it was reverence. Then one by one hands began to rise, clapping slowly at first, then with strength. Not loud, not chaotic, just steady, measured, the kind of applause that carries weight. Mercer didn't turn around. He simply nodded once toward the front of the cabin, acknowledging the unseen faces behind him. To him, it wasn't about recognition. It was about remembering those who never got to come home and hear the sound of gratitude. Across the aisle, Marcus finally stood up. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Sir, I owe you an apology." He stopped, swallowed hard. "I spoke without respect. I didn't know." Mercer looked at him gently, eyes calm, unaccusing. "You don't need to apologize, son," he said softly. "You just needed to see." Marcus's throat tightened. He nodded, sitting back down, staring at his expensive shoes like they were suddenly meaningless. Megan knelt beside Mercer's seat, her own eyes shining. "My brother's in the Air Force," she said quietly. "I think he'd want me to tell you." "Thank you." Mercer's expression softened even more. "Then tell him to stay sharp. The sky doesn't forgive easy mistakes." From the cockpit, the captain radioed the F-35s one last time, his voice steady but emotional. "Vegas Control, this is Flight 427, conveying our thanks to the Spectre wing. You've made this a day to remember." The reply crackled through the cabin speakers, unintentionally left open. "Roger that. 427. Tell Colonel Mercer we'll see him on the other side of the clouds. Even the static after the transmission carried weight." Megan pressed her hand to her mouth. Marcus blinked hard. The boy who had removed his cap was now leaning forward, wide-eyed, whispering to his dad, "Did you hear that?" They know him. Clyde, Colonel Mercer, looked down at the small leather wristband. It had survived decades of heat, wind, rain, and war. The edges were frayed, but the spirit behind it was indestructible. His thumb moved slowly over the cracked surface, tracing the invisible memory of the friend who had once tied it there. He thought of Deacon, of the sky over Da Nang, of 1,000 sunsets seen from the cockpit of a Phantom, and then, for the first time in a long while, he let himself close his eyes, not from exhaustion, but peace. The applause had faded. What replaced it was something stronger, silence. The kind of silence that says, "We see you now." The kind that doesn't need words to honor a man's life. The cabin had changed. Everyone could feel it. Excellent. The descent began with the soft whine of the engines throttling back. Outside, the clouds broke apart, revealing a coastline washed in late afternoon gold. The Pacific glimmered below, stretching endlessly toward the horizon. The captain's voice came over the intercom again, calm and measured. "Cabin crew, prepare for landing. And Colonel Mercer, sir, from all of us, thank you for your service." The passengers didn't applaud this time. They didn't need to. The gratitude was unspoken but everywhere, hanging in the quiet hum of the cabin like a prayer. Megan moved through the aisle one last time, checking seatbelts. When she reached Mercer's row, she paused. "You all right, sir?" she asked softly. He smiled. "Just fine. I've landed in tougher weather." She chuckled quietly, then hesitated. "Can I ask, that bracelet? What does it mean?" Mercer turned the worn leather band around his wrist. "It's a reminder," he said, "of a friend who never made it home. We called each other Spectre because we flew where others couldn't see. He gave me this before our last mission." He looked out the window at the soft light flickering across the wing. "Every flight since then, he's come with me." Megan swallowed hard, then whispered, "Then he's with you now." Mercer nodded slowly. "Always." The wheels touched down with a gentle thud. For a brief moment, everyone felt the shiver of contact, the solid, reassuring return to Earth. The cabin exhaled, as if it had been holding its breath the entire flight. As the aircraft rolled toward the gate, the sun caught the tail fin, bathing it in amber. The same light washed over Mercer's face, drawing out every line, every scar, every story etched into his skin. When the seatbelt sign dinged off, people didn't rush to stand. Instead, they waited, some out of respect, some because they didn't quite know what to do with what they'd just witnessed. Marcus, the businessman, stood and turned toward Mercer. "Sir," he said, his voice steady but humble, "if you'd ever like to tell your story—" "I'd like to listen." Mercer gave him a small nod. "You already did." The boy across the aisle held out a small toy jet, plastic wings, slightly bent. "For you, sir," he said shyly. "It's not a real one, but maybe it can fly with your friend." Mercer smiled, the kind of smile that held decades behind it. He took the toy carefully, as though it were made of glass. "It'll do just fine." The passengers began to file out. Some paused to nod, some whispered thank yous. No one looked away this time. When it was finally quiet again, Megan lingered by the door. "Colonel," she said, "I'll remember this flight." He stood slowly, steadying himself with one hand on the armrest. "Then make sure you remember the ones who didn't get to land," he replied. She blinked back tears. "Yes, sir." He gave her a gentle smile. "Good. That's all any of us can do." As Mercer stepped into the jet bridge, the light changed again. Brighter now, cleaner. The cold, recycled air gave way to the warm scent of fuel and sun-baked metal. The same smell he'd known his whole life. He paused, eyes lifting toward the sliver of sky visible through the terminal glass, for a heartbeat. He could have sworn he saw them, two faint streaks high above, crossing paths in salute before fading into the light. He whispered under his breath, "Welcome home, Spectre. Some heroes never stop flying. They just learn to walk among us quietly."